Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So for those of us who live here, Michigan's a wonderful place to get outdoors, whether it's the Great Lakes, skiing, hiking, ice fishing. We've got plenty to feed our adventurous spirit. But did you know that Michigan has a robust outdoor industry and business ecosystem? Here to share the efforts of the Michigan's Outdoor Recreation Industry Office is their Executive Director, Mr. Brad Garmon. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So, real high-level view, what is the mission of the Outdoor Recreation Industry Office? What is it and what isn't it?
Sure, yeah. As you pointed out in the intro there, the outdoor recreation enjoyment piece is always a big key part of Michigan. That's our identity. It's who we are at the Great Lakes State. The Outdoor Industry Office is all about taking that as a foundation rather than the peak of what we can do and trying to build more around that, a really robust, diversified economy that leverages not just the enjoyment of Michigan and all it offers, but also the underlying capabilities in design, manufacturing, all the stuff that you use to go outdoors and make that enjoyment, and building that as part of our strategy.
Right. And it must get a little confusing because when you think of outdoor recreation as two words by themselves, you can think of tourism and you can think of like conservationism, preserve our wild spaces and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you're in kind of the business ecosystem and trying to, attract and retain the companies that are building the stuff that we use outdoors. Is there much of an overlap, or how do you point people in the right direction? Because it's got to get a little slushy from your perspective.
Yeah, and the way I tried to approach it, so this office is fairly new to the state of Michigan, but not fairly new to some other states, like I think out west,
Yep.
Colorado, Utah. There's a term, outdoor recreation industry, that's just taken for granted out there in a way that in Michigan's culture and our heritage, we just haven't done. So industry isn't to the exclusion of the enjoyment. It's actually the part that supports it, just like we would any other sector. Think in Michigan, we have a robust auto industry, and we know what that means. It means the suppliers. It means all the employees, all that stuff. We have an outdoor rec industry in much the same way that builds on those recreational tourism destinations and all the amazing things we can do here, but then leverages the rest of it. So really, I think of the industry office as a connection point for some of those things. So you think about really on one side, tourism, absolutely great relationship with the Pure Michigan team. We work at MEDC alongside them as they're promoting what we can offer. And the Parks and Rec world, which is a lot of what people think of, when they hear the term outdoor recreation in Michigan,
Right.
They think, I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to go ride my bike. I'm going to hike. I'm going to, as you point out, ski or do something else. And then just try to fill in that middle ground where we've never thought about it as an industry, as
Right.
a standalone sector that builds on those two things, but also does some other stuff that have been left to their own devices.
And you talk about the auto industry, which, when you say auto industry, everyone knows exactly what you're talking about. It's manufacturing jobs. The big three are founded here, and we put the world on wheels. But we don't equate that to great roads and race tracks and drag strips and like how that stuff is being used.
Yeah.
Whereas here in your industry, we kind of lead with how the stuff is being used and almost forget about the subculture of industry that feeds it.
Yeah, it's a really good example too to me, because I think we took for granted in the auto industry that we had so much underlying infrastructure to support it.
Yep.
Thinking specifically around testing and design and everything from the clay models in the design studios to taking those things out at the test tracks and doing all the refinement. That's still a really big part of what it means to have an auto industry.
Right.
We can do the same thing with outdoor rec. So if it's fun for us to go ride a bike or go skiing, the industry also needs to test all that stuff, and it needs to design and refine all that stuff. So why can't our playground also be that testing ground, much the same way we would for some other sector?
Right. I would imagine. So we've already got some of it.
We do.
Right. And then we want to attract more of it.
You got it.
Right. And that's kind of what your world is about, trying to get these individual, somewhat maybe fragmented people that are in these spaces to kind of align a little bit better and bring in more of their partners.
Yeah, and that's probably the most important thing to think about in terms of my office. It sits here at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation as a business-to-business conversation.
Right.
That it's, yes, Pure Michigan and promotion and recreation enjoyment continues. I'm out there trying to get the finger on the pulse of the industry, what their needs are, what they're wanting, so that Michigan can put more of those cards on the table for them and say, if you're thinking about expansion, you're thinking about a new design or testing facility, think about Michigan. We actually have a lot of the outdoor recreation stuff that you would find in other states, and we also have all these amazing capabilities in production, design, manufacturing.
So we have some and we want more. Can you tell us a little bit about the impact that the industry has on our state's economy?
Yeah, that's surprising to a lot of folks when it gets, again, huge. It's really, really big. So $12.38 billion is the number we put on it. Federally, they measure this every year. For Michigan, and that's our GDP contributing just from outdoor recreation. And really what's fun now is that this is a new piece of data that we can really start mining for strategy. And so that $12.38 billion is really comprised of, I focus on three big categories. So retail sales, wholesale sales, we buy a lot of outdoor recreation gear.
Right,
Michigan, that's about 40% of our GDP is just buying stuff. And it's everything from big ticket boats to small ticket backpacks and sleeping bags and things like that. We just buy a ton of it. And it's for everything, the way the federal government measures it: hunting, fishing, camping, skiing, all outdoors. So 40% retail, and then about 20% of it is actually those facilities, the places where we go to recreate, the ski lodges, the resorts, those kind of things. And then 15% of it's manufacturing. And that's overall GDP. So we can start measuring that and saying, like, all right, well, if we have an opportunity to build a plan in Michigan, we're going to grow this sector. That's 75% of the outdoor rec economy. Where do we want to put our efforts? And what I've found, and I think it's really starting to show in the efforts of the office over the last 5 years, we've had 35% growth in those 5 years in outdoor recreation, manufacturing specifically. That's, on top of a pretty robust growth in the industry overall. It's double-digit growth, but 35% is higher wage jobs. It's more resilient jobs. It's things that are going to stay through bad winters when the ski industry, it's, having to accommodate that. These are jobs in manufacturing, design, other things that are going to be here and be more foundational-based jobs that we can target and grow. So that's what we're doing, and we're having an impact, I think, in that way, and really trying to turn that 12.8 into even more billions.
So when you look at that 35% growth, can you drill that down a little bit at your office and kind of give us a gauge as to, is it designing EV snowmobiles and dirt bikes and pontoon boats, or is it more of the backpacking, hiking boots, that kind of, is there, can you tell what industry is making up most of that growth?
That's what's fun about this, is we get to figure that stuff out. So we're building new tools. We've got some ways to drill down in. That's federal level data. We can get a decent snapshot, but then which businesses in Michigan account for that 35%, which segments of the outdoor recreation economy they're in. We don't know for sure yet. I can tell you anecdotally, like, we're getting out and finding a lot more small business startups in this space that are finding niche markets. Ultralight camping is a really good example. Like, we have several companies, Chicken Tramper, Superior Wilderness Design. These are small cottage folks that are hand making this kind of stuff, but that's a huge growing industry. And so we're finding that it's really hard to say, like, we can find that with the tools we got today.
Sure.
We're sort of having to bootstrap a lot of this data and a lot of this analysis as we build out that plan.
Right. But if you go from a startup to $5 million in revenue and you have 50 of them, then that pools together to be really a neat ecosystem and adds to the total growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're trying to point out, that as an economic development opportunity, outdoor rec has some really interesting overlays between community development, how do communities leverage their outdoor recreation in new ways to be the place where a startup wants to be. I mentioned Superior Wilderness Design. A good story is because they were in Ferndale, Michigan, Southeast Michigan, but they picked up and moved to Wolverine to be closer to the outdoor recreation opportunities in the Pigeon River Country State Forest. It's the longest looped backcountry hiking experience you can do. And they're like, this is where we're going to use our gear, so this is where we ought to test and make our gear. So community development, and then, really, 20 small businesses like them, or like Chicken Tramper or others. That's a very different strategy and approach to economic development than saying we're going to just grab one big one. We'll take the big ones. We're going to keep working on attracting one or two really big ones too. But lots of aggregated small ones are also a huge economic impact that we can spread across the strait.
Well, we threw out a whole bunch of numbers, so it seems logical for me to give a plug to my folks at Wagoner Financial. Are you ready to make smart financial decisions? Wagoner Financial offers a proven process for financial transformation, empowering individuals at all stages, whether you're just starting out, nearing retirement, or anywhere in between. Stop feeling unsure about your financial path. Wagoner Financial can help you undergo this financial transformation. Schedule a consultation today to discuss your individual needs and discover how Wagner Financial can help you by visiting wagner-financial.com or call them at 517-853-3367. So you mentioned a couple of your smaller companies that have started up and built their brands that people may not have heard of, but share with the world some of the bigger brands that are here that maybe they know that are here or don't know that they're here.
Yeah, and this is where I think it's really exciting to think about the segments in the outdoors. So we got into backpacking, things like that. Hiking boots is a big one. So Merrell is one of the best known household names in hiking. It's the largest hiking boot company in the world. So that's in Rockford, Michigan, north of Grand Rapids, alongside other brands like Chaco, which is now known for sandals. So we have a whole footwear, sort of base of operations in West Michigan with national identity, national brands.
They have Saucony too, don't they? The running shoe.
Yep,
so running. People are out there trail running.
Yeah. So there's all these companies under one roof, and a lot of the design, engineering, a beautiful campus north of Grand Rapids. And Grand Rapids is really aware as a region of those assets. So to our earlier conversation, where are they using those hiking boots? There's the national forest surrounding it. There's all kinds of investments on the riverfront. So there's an outdoor recreation focus to that feels kind of footwear design relevant. Other parts of the state, Southeast Michigan, if you think of outdoors as also the vehicles that we take to use, whether it's a Ford Bronco that you hook your bike and your kayak and everything to and go live your best life, or a company like Mahindra or Polaris in the ATV off-road world. That's a big piece. Boating sector. We have a pretty robust boat manufacturing hub in Northwest Central, like Cadillac area. Some of the biggest brands, Beneteau, Rec Boat Holdings, Cadillac Forewind. It's just amazing some of the well-known brands. So the segments within outdoors have some things in common and a lot of differences, but what they all have in common is it's sort of that customer base, like people who want to be outside doing outdoors things, whether it's on a pontoon boat, with a bike, anything else. So we're trying to really lean into that and start with the brands we've got. It'd be remiss not to mention Carhartt, been here since 1885. Workwear, yes, but people in the outdoors like Carhartt, and they know it, that's a really outdoorsy sort of brand that people are wearing that gear outdoors as well.
Right. And the family and I we go out to Holland on a pretty regular basis. And past there's this massive manufacturing facility for Tierra yachts.
Yeah, Tierra's another good example.
Yeah, and the boat in the showroom, I'm like, holy mackerel, I didn't know that brand was here.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we have not, as a state, thought about those as one sector. To our earlier conversation.
Yep.
But if you measure it, we're fourth in the country in the GDP from boat and fish. And that's it because we have boat manufacturing, we have a huge retail and sort of operating all the marinas that are doing boats. So that whole economy is very robust, and the boating industry is a real opportunity for Michigan to lean into what we've got and building on that Great Lakes identity as well.
So how does your office engage these existing manufacturers and companies that are producing here? And then second, I guess, would be is how are you managing trying to attract either their competition or people in the supply chain to get closer and use Michigan for all the things that we've got?
Yeah, it's a really, the goal here is to be in partnership with the industry. So step one is finding them, getting to know them, having conversations. I mean, I take the boat industry and Cadillac area, finding their needs. It's a lot of workforce. So we're starting to partner with other unique Michigan things like the Great Lakes Boat Building School, who's doing workforce training for folks who want to go to work in the industry. So meet the industry where it is, find out what they need. And I think there's everything from workforce to innovation, like what's the next product? How do we figure out how electrification is going to change off-road vehicles? Be the place where some of those innovation happens is a way we're starting to think about attracting those. So leveraging the ones we've got, helping them grow, helping them meet their customer, helping them meet the needs they have, and then leaning into how can we become more of a destination for those companies and start attracting them. And we're doing those two, I think, in a really a way that's marketing the state to a very specific audience. So we're not taking this on the road to a tourism show. We're taking it to the Power Sports Expo in Vegas, where the motorcycle industry gathers to talk about what's coming next. And we went out there and met with them, the CEOs of the biggest brands in that, and outdoor retailer shows where in Utah, the outdoor industry is talking about what's next. So we're trying to get Michigan into those spaces And it's working. Like, people are talking about Michigan on a national landscape. If you get into the industry, outdoor recreation industry trade groups, Michigan's making a lot more of an impact in those spaces that you might not see because we're thinking again of outdoor recreation as tourism.
Right.
And that's still going strong.
And it seems really important to be intentional about that, deliberately showing up at these places where Michigan wasn't showing up before. We were almost organically and almost by accident successful in this field just because of the geography that we have and the topography, and the people just wanted to be where they can test this stuff. But to deliberately go out, and which just makes me think, but what I know of the MEDC, you've got other partners that can be an extension of you. You mentioned talent, you mentioned, these, the marketing department, they give you the materials to go. I know we've got, OFME that, why don't you share a little bit about some of the other teammates that you find yourself maybe shoulder to shoulder with, depending on the audience you're at? Yeah,
that's the great thing about the way the office was created in 2019. It really builds on that foundation of partnership, so that it starts with the natural resources of the state. Department of Natural Resources housed the office for the first few years and is still a key partner because they have hundreds of miles of trails, lots of public lands where those companies and their customers are using this stuff. So they're a key partner in helping us share, helping us think about deployment opportunities for innovative technology on their trails, partners in putting in charging for off-road stuff. And then, at MEDC internally, it is such a great alignment with so much of what it means to market the state and help it deal with these legacy issues of population growth. It's a really exciting industry to work in, and that we can start moving the needle on keeping and attracting some of those engineers, some of those designers that might otherwise feel like they have to go to Utah or have to go to Colorado to be in the outdoor industry. Like, if we aggregate this and tell them, like, hey, this is a priority of the state, it helps a lot of other things. So talent, population growth, future mobility and electrification. I mentioned that's a big opportunity for us to just use what we've got and market it to a very specific audience of power sports or boats.
And, I guess I take it for granted that there is a congruent nature of the places you go to use this stuff and where the stuff is made. So is Colorado, for example, a big employment base of people doing outdoor rec manufacturing? Like, I threw out some brands in my mind that people would know. It's like, where's North Face? Where's Coleman? Where is K2 Skis? I mean, do these places tend to be headquartered? Trek Mountain Bikes, are they made in places where their product is more used, or do they find themselves in a place that's just easier to find talent and cheap land and the ability to manufacture, and then they ship it to where the people use it?
Yeah, this is still a pretty robust area of research and collaboration. But what we think we know, and in conversation with the industry, is there is a nexus between place in the outdoor industry and the business of outdoor industry that might not be so prevalent in other sectors, auto or medical device or something. That you go to. There is a lot in Colorado, but I would say, they don't necessarily have the manufacturing heritage that we have. So they might have the 14,000-foot mountains, but they still have to go either build or find a supply base to make that product work. And that means either going overseas or going somewhere else. And we just want to make sure that Michigan is playing on all the notes and saying, like, yep, we've got great mountains. You can fly to Colorado for 14,000, but you can do a lot of great skiing out your back door in Michigan. And we have the manufacturing base and more design engineers than any other state. And we have lots of suppliers who are eager to sort of diversify and figure out how their capabilities, their CNC machines can help you build that ski edge or build something else that you need done. So I think there is a sense that some of the outdoor recreation states that have that brand identity might not have all the tools in the tool belt that Michigan does if we start really pulling it all together in one spot.
Makes sense. So, we're talking about place. And so I want to talk about the Keller Williams team. We all need a place to call home. And Chris Silker of Keller Williams Advantage and team offers the expertise that you're looking for. He has helped clients navigate the complicated world of real estate in mid-Michigan for over 10 years, providing the best information possible at the right time to empower your best decision. Whether you're a first-time home buyer looking for a local expert to guide you from point A to point B, searching for an income property in the competitive Lansing market, or right-sizing your life, searching for for your dream home, Chris Silker can do it all. He and his Advantagen team is the name to trust in Greater Lansing real estate. Visit advantagenteam.kw.com or call Chris at 517-242-9251 today and find the home of your dreams. So, what is our low-hanging fruit? You know, for you to really kind of make hay, are there a couple of things that you think we can, switches we can flip that would get us a decent amount of bang for the buck?
Yeah, and I think as we're building out the strategy, I think I already mentioned, like, not leaving anything behind. We're going to keep the foundation of travel, tourism, hospitality, building out destination places, facilitating more conservation stewardship projects because we know that's important to talent. So those are foundations. And then strategically, what we're leaning into, low-hanging fruit, really is this manufacturing. It is, a smaller part of our overall jobs, but a much bigger part of wages and GDP because they are higher wage and they provide living wage that really is important. So we're focusing in on that, and the spaces that I think Michigan has strategic advantage that we're trying to play into is in two areas, kind of sustainability, thinking everything from electrification of power sports. The autos are doing it. The power sports industry can do it along with us and adjacent to that. And on the other side, thinking about onshoring, essentially stuff that can be made here.
Yep.
We can make it here. So soft goods, a term in the industry for everything from bags to clothing, stuff that you sew, stuff that's soft. There's a lot of innovation in there. And there's also a lot of innovation around how that material is managed, making it more sustainable, more recycled content. So that's a value of the industry that I think we can lean into with programs like Next Cycle Michigan and other stuff that we have in our toolkit already. So sustainability, one. And then I think really expanding the market. So diversity, access, opportunity for more people. As an example, we're doing a boat trades program in the city of Detroit, the only Black-owned marina in the city of Detroit. I'm partnering with the Great Lakes Boat Building School, who are leading the operation, but really just exposing a bunch more youth to careers and opportunities to fill the need in the boating industry with folks who have a different perspective, who maybe didn't grow up boating or something like that. That's part of what the industry is trying to do, because that's the future market. COVID and the pandemic taught us that the outdoor recreation is for everyone, and we still have to get over this sense that like outdoor recreation is just for a really high-end, high-performance ice climber or something like that.
Right.
Anybody can do that. But out your back door on a bike, taking a hike, that's for everybody too, and it still requires good gear and an opportunity. So those two areas are the low-hanging fruit that we're really trying to lean into what Michigan offers already.
Right. And it seems like we've got those stories, right? I mean, we could do an entire show about, the Black-owned Detroit-based, marina and this partnership and what they're trying to create. And maybe we'll do that. I put a pin in that. But you mentioned Ice Fest, and I grew aware that Ice Fest was even a thing this past year and was fortunate enough to go attend that. And that just kind of reminded me of a few minutes ago when you were talking that, well, first of all, I mean, you can share a little bit, but it seems like it's known now. Ice Fest has been happening for a while, and people come from around the world to do ice climbing in Michigan. But at that show, there was kind of like a trade show, and people with startups walking around, and people with small businesses trying to sell their stuff or get momentum for people that are excited about the industry. So that is an example of kind of hand in glove. Talk a little bit about Ice Fest's origin and who it draws and that whole idea of the kind of trade show with it.
Yeah, it's a great story. So all credit to Bill Thompson and Matt Abbott's and the team at Downwind Sports, an outdoor retailer, long-standing outdoor retailer in the Upper Peninsula. But over 30 years, they grew an ice climbing festival, and it's really the largest natural ice climbing festival in the country, really well known in the industry among folks who climb. And so it's natural ice, waterfalls in a Lake Superior, absolutely spectacular landscape. And it really highlights that for the industry, that is a big and growing piece of the market, climbing in general. And that's just, it relies on folks like Bill and his team to open up those opportunities for more people. And we're coming in behind it to support a whole range of stuff. So big industry partners that Bill works with, like Black Diamond, were there last year. And there's educational forums, and there's, like you say, a trade show. So they bring their design engineers from Black Diamond who are thinking about the ice axes and the crampons and stuff that they're improving for climbing this is, again, a place that most people in Michigan don't think about as outdoor rec, is a design engineer who's working on a carabiner for a company like Black Diamond. But they're in Little Munising, Michigan, in front of thousands of ice climbers who come up there every year. Big film festival that goes with it, nationally known athletes. It's one of those that really is a nationally known event in the industry and amongst that particular segment that most people in Michigan, even in the UP, aren't really even aware of how big and how, just as a highlight, Bill and his team reminded me to take a little tour. At the point in time during the week that Michigan Ice Fest is happening, there is the largest collection of that high-end ice climbing gear anywhere in the country is in Munising, Michigan. And it's in a little elementary school where every big brand is sending all their rental gear to make sure everybody wants to get out on those waterfalls and climb that ice can do it. And so all this gear from the biggest brands in the country are all showing up in Munising, Michigan. And it's just a really cool way to start thinking about and recalibrating who we're talking to and who we're selling some of these assets to.
That's great. Well, Brad, I tell you, it seems like you've got the best job in the world. I mean, clearly you're passionate. I mean, you didn't fall into this. You weren't in accounting and you decided to get into outdoor rec. It seems like your passion for outdoor rec started and then you found the career that kind of fits your world, and maybe the tourism side and the actual getting out and doing stuff is maybe the more fun and sexier part. But we need in Michigan, the population growth. We can't be successful by accident. It needs to be intentional. And best kept secret is not a good business strategy, right? So fanning the flames that this all is happening and getting these people aligned and stuff. So can people follow along with your story? Is there a website or social media or anything or newsletter that our listeners can kind of get occasionally to check out what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I do feel like sometimes I have to pinch myself. It's a very cool job. So LinkedIn is a place to find the Michigan Outdoor Recreation Industry Office. We have a monthly newsletter. It's coming out, kind of where the office is, who we're talking to, some of the opportunities that we're seeing. And then, there's a website. If you go to MEDC or just Google Economic Development Corporation, Outdoor Recreation, you'll find our main page. There's tons of interesting data, all these numbers we've been throwing around. There's stories of companies, Little Bay Boards we were at recently. So follow along, and we would actually love to meet more companies and get to know more of them as we're early on in this strategy. I hope people do. I hope they find it and join me. It is a very cool space. And I think the great thing and why I am so excited to be doing the work that we're doing is it does take the best of what Michigan is and what we offer the world and putting it in a new conversation that it hasn't been part of before. Without leaving anything behind, it's true to us. It's true to our authentic outdoor recreation heritage, our Great Lakes state identity that I know and love and lots of my friends and family do, and just seeing it as a new way to a new path to a new economic prosperity that we haven't really tapped before.
Fantastic. What a great story to tell. Thanks for joining me here today. We've been speaking with the Michigan Outdoor Recreation Industry Office's Executive Director, Mr. Brad Garmon. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Chris.
And I want to give a loyal sponsor shout out to all of the folks that are helping me get this done in Forsberg Real Estate Company, Wagoner Financial, Triterra Environmental, Good Marketing, the attorneys at Foster Swift, Keller William Advantage, and Team. They're fantastic people worth the call. And I want to remind you that if you're finding this show as a one-off Michigan Reimagined, you can sponsor, you can sponsor us, but you can also like and subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere you find your podcast. This is Chris Buck with Michigan Reimagined.